Hey VC, it's Matt again. I just posted a review of the Beach Boys' Wild Honey album, but I thought I would make another video and carry on with the ranking Beatle albums, songs on the Beatles albums in order of my preference. So we come to their fifth album in England, and this came out August 6th in England, came out August 13th in America, number one in both countries, of course. Of course, this is Help, the soundtrack to their second film, originally to be titled Eight Arms to Hold You, but fortunately they changed the name there. So, personally, this is the one that I grew up with, and always liked this, preferred this one, I guess. But the cover's better, even though it's not a greatest cover in the world. I always liked it. Got a great back cover, and then it's got a cool gatefold with a lot of neat pictures in there. So the British cover, they had great covers overall over there, but this one's a little plain vanilla. I don't know. It's not a bad cover, but it's just okay. And I like you got the little red help there where you got the big help coming at you. And I just never have to this day gotten used to starting this album out and not hearing the James Bond theme before you go into the title track, which you don't get on the English version. It's just sort of strange to me. But anyway, the British album does have the advantage of having all songs instead of the film music, which is interspersed between songs here, of course, on the American version. But let's go through the list, and starting with, this is another case of pretty much there's really nothing that I just flat out don't like on this album. They're all pretty great. So it's kind of tough to pick, but it wasn't as tough with this one. So we'll start off number 14, Dizzy Miss Lizzie, an old Larry Williams song that the band covered. Must have been a song that John liked because the Beatles did it in concert quite a bit, and he did it, of course, at the Live Peace for Toronto concert a few years later. And it's it's an okay song. It's several people have been reviewing this other Beatles albums, and they've noticed or they've mentioned how the guitar is gets a little bit annoying because it just keeps on da 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 da, and never noticed that before, oddly enough, but I've noticed it now. That's not why I put it at number 14. That just was never one of my favorite songs of theirs. This was, like I said, I'm never been a huge fan of bands doing covers, even though the Beatles and Rolling Stones and some other bands did great covers. So there are exceptions, and some of the Beatles cover songs are among some of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. Please Mr. Postman and Really Got a Hold on Me and Money and Anna and so forth. But they tended to, by and large, do covers that were songs that were a little more obscure. So I'm glad they weren't doing covers of things like Hound Dog by Elvis, or which was a cover in itself of Big Mama Thornton, but that's another story. Or Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry, the things that were already big hits. And not that there's anything, those songs are great, but if I want to hear them, I'll just go listen to Elvis and Chuck Berry's versions. But so they tend to do, by and large, covers that are not as well known, a little more obscure. Of course, they did rock and roll music on the album before that. I like that quite a bit because they do a good version, and John's just singing his heart out and having fun, and it shows in the song, so that's a fun song. Same thing with Dizzy Miss Lizzie. I guess he likes it and he's having fun, but it's just, I was never that crazy about the original. It's not a bad song, but here they do the cover that's okay, and it goes in at number 14. And really, by this point in their career, they had proven themselves as extremely talented and great songwriters in their own right. It's a little late in the game for them to be turned into cover versions. I know they were probably touring constantly and having to churn out records constantly and on TV and being pulled in 80 directions, so that might be part of it. But they'd already done Hard Day's Night, where they had a full album with no covers. And so it's an okay song. It comes in at number 14. Number 13, I went with Act Naturally, Ringo's shining moment on this album. Ranked pretty low, doesn't mean I don't like it. I do like it. I love, I think he's really good at singing this, an old Buck Owens song. Ringo has a knack for doing well on the country songs and the old songs. Of course, Buku's a Blues album would be his second solo album, which is all old country songs. And Joe, Mean Mr. Mayo, has said before, and I agree with him, that Ringo probably might ought to consider doing another album of old country music or old Western music or even another old standards album because he does pretty well with that stuff. And I think he does a really good job here with Act Naturally. It sounds suitably country-ish, for a British band trying to do American country music. They do a pretty good job of it, and it fits Ringo's vocal range, and it's a good song, but doesn't doesn't sync with the rest of the album. Sticks doesn't really fit in, but it's a good song. It comes in at number 13, and yeah, it would be nice to see Ringo do another album of old songs, old standards, or old country music, or just old music if he got a good producer. It'd be a nice change of pace from, even though I liked Postcards, his last album was pretty good, and I've liked some of his recent albums. He's gone to the well a few too many times on those songs that have the mentions and references to Liverpool and the Beatles, and that's getting a little time to move on to something else, Ringo. Number 12, this might surprise some people. Number 12, I've got Yesterday, which I remember reading in the Guinness Book of World Records when I was a kid is the most covered song ever. I don't know if that's still the case or not, but certainly it's been covered by a ton of people. It's I can't fault it. It's a good song. Paul McCartney did what he intended to do. He wanted to write a standard, one of those old songs like Cole Porter or Irving Berlin or Gershwin or the songs that Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra had from an earlier age that would become a standard. And he certainly succeeded in that. Oddly enough, which you all probably know, the song was originally called Scrambled Eggs. Scrambled Eggs, how I'd love to eat some scrambled eggs. Common sense prevailed, thankfully, and Paul came up with a better lyric. Some people call it trite, which maybe, but certainly it rings true. Funny thing about the song for me is that I seems like I related to it better when I was young, when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, and now that I'm an old man with that point in my life where you kind of look back on the good old days when you were young. It seems like that would resonate with me more now, but it, I think it resonated more when I was younger for some strange reason, because I certainly do look back on the good old days and miss things that are no longer around. But of course, there's also the fact that it's been played a million, billion, gazillion times, so that kind of wears on you. Strange thing about how some songs do that, because I've heard "You Really Got Me" and a lot of songs, "Get Off My Cloud" and "She Loves You" a million, gazillion times, but they still hit me in a good way. But it's a good song. There's some days that I like it. There's some days that I'm just so I'm putting it at number 12. One thing about it that I always get a kick out of is my dad was born in 1925. So by the time rock and roll came along, 55 or so, he was about 30, and his music tastes were developed by that time. And he liked the old standard stuff. He liked Bing Crosby and Perry Como and Dean Martin, Sinatra, the big band, Tommy James, and all that, or Tommy, whatever, the big band guys, and all that sort of stuff. He hated rock and roll, couldn't stand it, and I've told this story before, but he didn't mind that I listened to it, or that my older brothers listened to it. Every once in a while he'd kind of kid about it, but he just thought, basically all of it. Now my mom's the same age, and she liked all that Sinatra and stuff too. She liked little bit of rock and roll, not very much, not Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, but she liked Bridge Over Troubled Waters and Hey Jude and a few things like that. My dad, he was just, sounds like a bunch of damn banging pots and pans racket, worthless noise to me. But though oddly enough, he did like Creedence Clearwater Revival, which was kind of out of character for him, and I never did completely understand that one. Not like he'd go out and buy their records, but he said they were okay. But one of the very few, probably about the only thing other than that he liked, he said, well, at least that Yesterday, I guess that's all right because it sounds at least sort of kind of like real music or regular music. So I always kind of got a kick out of that. But like I said, can Paul managed to do what he set out to do, which was write a timeless standard. He'd kind of already done that with And I Love Her, I guess, which I prefer to Yesterday, probably, truth be told. But Yesterday, it sounds like it could have been recorded uh, 20, 30 years earlier. It would have been a hit. So it's okay. Sometimes I like it. Just depends on my mood. Most of the time, I can take it or leave it. Number 11, You Like Me Too Much, George song. I really like the piano on here, and I think there's actually a couple of regular piano and electric piano going on. Like George's vocals, it's a good song. He's still developing as a songwriter, but it comes in at number 11. I don't dislike it, but it's got to go somewhere, and there's better songs on the album. Number 10, I've got Tell Me What You See. Another thing where I really like the piano, I like the vocals. It's a pretty good song. What else to say about it? It comes in at number 10. Number 9 is another George's songs on this album, I Need You, which I really like. I like his vocals. I like the song. It's just a matter of there's some songs on here that I like better. Funny thing about I Need You is that there's a song by the same title roughly around the same time by the Kinks and by the Who, and then a decade or so later there'd be a song called I Need You by the Jam. So popular song title for whatever reason. But yeah, George's version, and they're all different songs. They're not covers of each other. But the Beatles, I Need You, good song. So that comes in at number 9. Number 8, It's Only Love, which is another great song. This and the next and another one coming up soon. Just they having grown up in America with the American albums, those songs belong on Rubber Soul, and they just seem really odd to be on the Help album. But that doesn't take away from it's a great song, and so It's Only Love is number 8. Number 7, I've got You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. I think that's the first song that's actually in the film that I've. Yeah, I think it is. So, obviously the Dylan influence on John. Great vocal, great song. I love the scene in the film where they've got the bed that sinks down and they're hanging out at the, where they live and that singing that song. So yeah, that is number 7. Number 6, I've Just Seen a Face, the other song that belongs on Rubber Soul, not here, but in reality it was on the Help album. It just seems really weird, but great song, great vocal. So yeah, number 5, I've got The Night Before. That's with the third of the Help soundtrack albums. Love the piano. I don't know if that's Paul playing the piano. I think it is. Might be John. Whoever's doing it is just like knocking it out the ballpark and just rocking away on the piano. Great vocal, great musically. Just love that song. I'd give it a 10. Pretty much everything, most of these things on here, I'd rate a 10. A couple of them I might rate between a 7 and a 9. But yeah, so there, The Night Before. Number 4, right? Number 4 is Another Girl. Another 10. Love it. Love the guitar in that. Great vocal. Just a neat, cool song. And I actually saw the film. Hell, when I first got in the Beatles, when I was about 8 or so, they showed up on the afternoon movie on Channel 11 playing Help like a month or so after I got big time into the Beatles. So I saw Help first, and then a month or so later they showed Hard Day's Night. So I saw these films out of order. And even though Hard Day's Night's the better movie, technically, Help's always been my favorite. It was just so fun and anyway, so great songs in there. So that was yeah. What number 4 is Another Girl. Number 3, You're Gonna Lose That Girl. I never knew why this wasn't a single. I think it would have been a hit for them. Uh, love it. Love when I first saw the movie, that's the first time I heard that song, the scene in the movie where they're in the recording studio doing it. And just love the harmonies and the three of them singing and the back and forth vocally, and the little guitar solo in the middle is great. The percussion is excellent. It's just a great song. One of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. Number 2, of course, hit single. Number 1 song, Ticket to Ride. Nothing not to love about that song. Just one of the greatest songs of all time. The guitar, the John's vocals, it's just all perfect. Kind of an example cited often as a early example of heavy metal or hard rock. Shows the Beatles really maturing as songwriters and keeping up with the times, because being 65, going from 64 to 65, now you've got some heavier groups coming in like the Who and the Yardbirds and stuff, and this shows that they're able to grow and change and keep up with the times and lead the way. And Ticket to Ride is just one of the best songs ever. And you can guess what's left. It's the title song, Help, which is not only my favorite song on this album, it's my favorite song of all time. So, and this again shows John and the Beatles maturing as artists. This is upbeat, energetic, driving, rousing pop song, but it's also got a little more substance to the lyrics, a little more troubling theme than I Want to Hold Your Hand or Boy Meets Girl. Not that She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand and those songs aren't great. They're among my favorite songs ever. But Help has a little bit more of a urgent, more mature, darker theme lyrically, though the music is still pop friendly enough that it probably didn't scare off their core audience, which in 1965 would still have been kids, basically teenagers and so forth. But it's a very simple, it's not a complex, big production number. It's a pretty straightforward, simple song. But for me, for whatever reason, I love the back and forth vocals, them singing, and the John and singing, and then George and Paul singing the line behind it, and how the vocals just interplay and flow in and out of each other. It's a song that I've always, even though it's a pretty basic, simple song, it just, the first time I heard it, it just knocked me on the floor, and I've loved it ever since. And every time I hear it, and I've heard it no telling how many times, it's like a simple painting or something, or a simple whatever, but every time I hear it, it seems like I notice something new in it, and it just never has ceased to amaze me. It's not the only song that does it. There's others, but this one just hits me right in the soul and the heart, and just always been my favorite song of any group or any song. So yeah, it's just great, and I love it. And so that would be number 1. Um Great album. This is another one that gets kind of ranked lower when people are ranking Beatles albums for some reason. Um, I always liked it, even though, like I said, I'm used to the American version. But that would be that. And yeah, we'll do some more Beatles albums and some more Beach Boys reviews coming up.